Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mowers will practically build themselves.
Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv and welcome to today's show. Today we are going to finish up the M4A3 Sherman that we reviewed and we started on a few weeks ago. Now, I've decided to make this a three-part series. This is part 2 that you'll be watching today. And the reason is, in part 1, we started building, we reviewed, and then we started building our M4A3 by Tamiya. And I got it to a certain point, but I've had to order some photo etch to do what I need to do for this particular tank. So I'm waiting for that to come in. Now, I think I mentioned in that first installment that I had purchased 2 of these. There were 2 of them on this markdown aisle that I got. So the second one is what we are going to be looking at today. These are very basic upgrades that you can do without buying photo etch. These are some pretty basic upgrades that you can do to make that Tamiya kit a whole lot more accurate. And we're doing the Pacific. We're doing one of the markings that's in the kit. It's actually right here. Okay, classy peg, and it says January, Philippines, January 1945. So, January 1945, that's when we invaded Luzon. And we'll probably include a little of that story in this segment. So, without further ado, let's get working on this tank.
So here we're going to do a quick review of what we have already done. So we put some texture on the hull in certain places that it needed it. We used either Tamiya glue or we used Mr. Surfacer, and we made these textured areas, the transmission cover, some places on the hull. We built up this part of the armor on the turret, and you can see on the turret and here in the back we've got the texture all done. We did that with the Mr. Surfacer, and that's the one that we're going to be talking about today. So this is the other kit that has the wood slats on the side. Remember, I had 2 of these kits. You'll see this one in a different video coming up. But today we're going to do the one without anything on the sides there. So we've got these skirt mounts from a Tasca kit that I don't use, and here we've mounted them to the side of the hull. Now, of note, the kit comes with these metal patches, these welded patches that you put on the side, but this is for a dry storage Sherman. This is a wet storage Sherman, so we do not use these on a wet storage Sherman. After I put down a coat of Future here on the side, I went ahead and put the decals on. They still silvered a little bit, but at least they stuck well in the still damp Future. However, on this side of the tank, the head's facing the wrong direction, so I flipped it around, and you can see it gives me a good outline for hand painting, which is what I'm going to have to do to make this more accurate. So I've gone ahead, used a cream color, a white and a black, and red, and you can see what I've been able to do so far. But it just doesn't quite look right. There we go. There we go. I finished it off and got it looking pretty much like the other side. So here on the turret, we had this little spot that we put a little bit of Future, and then got our decal on. And we've put the commander's aiming sight, which is the L-shaped thing right next to the armored periscope. Got that mounted, and that was from an Azuka kit as well. Here I've put my black pin wash down into the recessed areas. You can kind of make it out there. Here's a little bit better shot where I put it around the hull casting numbers and into the weld seams. So once that dried, then I went through and I dry brushed everything with a little bit of Panzer yellow in with my olive drab, and you can see here my dry brush technique and how that's gotten some of the areas of this tank to just pop, and corners, edges, things like that just stick right out. And here you can see on this side and how that turned out, particularly on the wheels, the bogies, and up front on the transmission cover, travel lock, all these other areas just pop.
Okay guys, I know this is a very busy workbench. There's so much stuff here. And yes, I do clean it off every once in a while, but today is not that day. What we are going to do today is we are going to take our Sherman project, and along the, I don't know what to call these, the attachments for the skirting. I honestly will have to look it up and see what it's supposed to be called. Anyway, this that we added here, they had some welds, not along the whole thing, but along some areas. And from what I've seen, it varied in different Shermans that I have seen. So we're just going to do it my way, and hopefully it's accurate enough, but you'll get the drift of what we're trying to do. So what we do is we've mixed up some of this epoxy putty, Milliput. Thank you very much. Some Milliput, and not very much of it. This is actually the extra that I've got so far. So I've rolled it out, and I cut out a piece, and I rolled that out to get this. Now we're going to roll it even more, and I'm going to take and cut a piece about yay big. Okay, so not very long. And I'm going to take that, and now I'm going to roll that out and get it even thinner. Okay, I'm going to cut the ends off of that. This might be a little bit thick still, but if you can see, this is a tiny little piece. And I'm going to put it, so you're not going to be able to see the details. I will, because I've got my viewer here. But you can kind of follow along with the idea of what I'm doing here. So first off, we have to lay it on the model. I'm going to take a little bit of Tamiya ultra thin cement, put right in the seam to help this adhere. And yes, you should probably do this during construction, not after, but you know what? You can do it kind of whenever, as we're going to prove here. So, okay. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to work it into the groove, or the seam as I call it. That piece was still a little bit thick. I'm going to remove on the I'm going to remove it from the skirt attachment. We'll try and get a fairly squared off piece here. And then what I do is I just take my knife and push down the blade part on it, and just kind of work a certain direction, whichever direction you want. Left to right, right to left, doesn't really matter, whatever's comfortable for you. And it spreads it out, and it also sends it up and down, and I want to try and keep it as much as I can into the seam area. Yes, I want a little bit out, but not a lot. So I have to press it down, because it does have some adhesion issues here. Okay.
cut some of it out. I'm wiping it off. No, I'm not cutting my wrists. No, I'm just wiping it off there because it's convenient. And I'm going back over it again. I've got some areas that have kind of popped up a little bit. So I want this to look like a weld bead, is what I want it to look like once it's painted. So I'm going to scrape a little bit here and there and put some more marks in it here and there. Take some patience and some time. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so we're going to continue on along here. I've already done this side, and you can see there it is drying. Once that's dry, we'll come back and just touch it up with some paint because we're going to weather this here in a few minutes anyway, so it should be fine. We'll come back and look.
Here, this gives you some idea of how thin we had to roll it out to make it work.
Okay, so now we've gone ahead and finished the rest of these. Had to turn off my music. I was listening to some Foreigner, some remix, and man, it was good. I don't want any copyright infringement problems, so yeah, you guys don't get to listen to it. But, so now we've got our Tamiya olive drab, which is what we painted this. We're just going to go over the seams, those weld seams, weld beads, I should say. Once those dry, we will come back with a little bit of weathering, and we'll finish weathering this tank to what we are going to do with it. Now, this same technique could be used in doing the weld beads that really need to be flush up here on the rest of the tank. I think I mentioned earlier, that's just not something I'm going to do on this. The weld beads that are on here are going to be okay for me. If I really wanted an uber accurate one, yes, I would redo those. I'm not going to worry about that. You know, there's a lot of things that I haven't done on here to make it more accurate that you guys will probably notice, and Sherman experts certainly will notice. But I'm just not gonna do all of them. Sorry, guys. Just enough that makes me feel a little more comfortable with the build. Got a finger mark there I'm gonna hit, so okay. We're gonna come back when this is when the paint's dry and continue on. Okay, so we have mixed it up with some water, a little bit of rubbing alcohol mixed in, and then we're going to use, these are the colors that we're going to use, this yellow ochre, some brown ochre, some raw umber, it's purple light, which is kind of a grayish white, and then some Naples yellow. And I'm just going to take a little bit of each of these and put in here, and then we'll just, you know, brush it on the tank, and let's see how it goes. So almost done here. Mainly I want it on the track. So we're trying to replicate January in Luzon. I have no idea how the weather actually was that year, that time. I do know that, yeah, when it rains a lot and it gets muddy. And I also know that when it doesn't rain, it's pretty dry and dusty, and you see some pictures of that. So, yeah, I think I'm happy with how this is looking so far. And you can see the weld beads, how the weld beads look. Still have this kind of a streak here that was hoping to make a little more subtle, maybe get rid of, but now it's still there. So, okay. We're going to wait for everything to dry, and we'll come back with the final. You see the drain hole there for the ventilator, the added periscope guards, the texture. You can really see the texture on the turret and on this area here, and on the transmission cover. That all turned out pretty good. The sight for the commander, gun sight for the commander there, we had to add. There is a clear periscope inside that periscope, armored periscope guard there. The leather part for the hatch. And here we are. You can see the weld seams there that we've added, and the bulge on the side of the turret. The tightening handle here for the it's the, I don't know, it's where you stow the 50 cal. And we've also added a handle up there on the turret where it's where the 50 cal is mounted. You'll see we got a little bit too much of the pigments on this side, a little bit too muddy, but I don't worry about it too much because sometimes one side was muddier than the other. You can see the areas where the crew gets up on the tank here.
So here we've added the tow cable, and you can see the stops for the engine doors that don't come in the kit, but I had to add with just some spare styrene that are right there in front of the lifting hooks. Very easy to build. Here you can see I've added a little bit more mud to the side of the turret here and how it turned out. So this tank is supposed to be representative of one that landed on Luzon in January of '45. My dad with the 25th Division didn't get there till March, but went right into battle in the central highlands of Luzon. So thanks for joining us, folks. I hope this helped and you learned something from it.